Hello and welcome. We are in round 4 of the Champ of Champs event. Brought to you by Heroes and Games, Doug Sims, over at the Columbus Convention Center. Give a nice plug to the OverPower Adventures podcast, where Doug Sims, the host of this event, and Phil Miller host a hangout-style podcast where you can come into the chat and they chat with everybody, any questions they have about current OverPower happenings and upcoming events. So kudos to them for putting together a great event. The Champ of Champs gathers up anyone that's won one of the events or done well enough in the season to get an invite. They ran a qualifier, which we did some commentary to the night before. 28 players came out for the qualifier. We've been hyping that number up above a lot. That's, just a few years back, 28 players would have been an amazing main event. Now we're seeing upwards of close to 40, and I've been throwing this gauntlet down. I think I'm trying to hit a 75 player nationals once the new set drops. So that's great. But yeah, pulling 28 players for a qualifier is fantastic. The Champ of Champs does run a little bit less Swiss because it is a smaller field because of the number of spots. It's a limited number of spots. So there are only 5 rounds of Swiss for this event. We are going into round 4. So you really have to be on your game to make the top 8 of this event. So let's go over to the table. I think we've got a great match here with 2 Lazarus Rising game designers. Shawn Sawyer, who was the creative director for most of the World Legends set, and Tyler Bertrand, who's a newcomer to Lazarus Rising Games, the number 1 ranked player when the game originally ended in 01. Very great player, builds really kooky, interesting decks, and has been an awesome addition to the Lazarus Rising team. Really brings a lot to the game design department and is been real helpful on a number of projects. So let's get into it. So right off the bat, I actually don't know what the event does because he slid it to where I can't see the picture, but it could be no fighting icons maybe played. That's one in this set, right, Dave?
It is. I'm trying to see the words if that's the one that's imprisoned for science. That's what it looks like to me, but I can't even remember which event that is. I'm not sure if it's the key duplicates or the no fighting icons.
And
Yeah,
sorry, Dave, I forgot to introduce. Phil Keffer did some of the early rounds, but David McMillan, another Lazarus Rising game founder and one of my best friends, is jumped back in here to do some commentary. So glad to have you.
glad to be here, and I got to enjoy your commentary with Phil on that last matchup. What a great match! And I know we're about to get treated to another banger right here. So we look like we have Ty running his kind of patented Mephisto Grunge Scarlet Witch deck with maybe a few variances on his normal build. And obviously, Shawn is running his tried and true Beyonder deck with Shadow King, X Babies, and his spin on it, Mr. Fantastic in reserve. So 2 intellect decks, um, both maybe, I think Ty's is obviously secondary type energy. I'm not sure if Shawn has a defined secondary type for that one, but going to be a great matchup.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Sean won with his energy variant. He used to run X-Men in the back, which was a deck we saw a lot by Gary and Sutton. But Sean's really the kind of innovator of the helicarrier battle site. That has become probably one of the top 3 sites we see the most. A lot of people use it now. If you have a negator on the team, the site does not have a negate, but it's got 2 cards that are full of voids, one of which defensively bumps a grid. It's got a lot of trickiness to it. It's really hard to play against. Sean was really the one that kind of identified why that was good. So Sean looks like he's making a big bet 3 right away. He gives Ty a card. Ty keeps it. Ty, on the other hand, Ty's looking to set up a way to shift as many hits as possible to Grunge. Grunge is extremely hard to kill. He has to have a multi-power hit on him. He can only be KO'd if he has is it a multi-power hit or a multi-power power card?
I think it's a multi-power hit because I know that Greg defeated I don't know if he defeated Tyler, but he definitely defeated Grunge with the Any Hero 10 multi back at I want to say the last the last Peace Bridge. So it's definitely a multi-power hit. Looks like Shawn gets the action started with a 5 intellect attack on Scarlet Witch.
Well, so
And
Ty tried to play Danger Seeker, which is a card that shifts all the hits to Grunge. Shawn had a negate, and he negated it. Now, Shawn throws an attack. Ty uses a turn to put an image inducer in play. And I think you got to call out Ty is flexing and playing one of the classic insert versions of it, which is I don't even know how many $100 card. So he could be playing the monumental one, which is worth probably 50 cents, but he has opted to play his deck with a card that costs hundreds of dollars, which is, you got to intimidate your opponent any way you can. You got to get in their head.
I love it. So a 2 strength attack from Scarlet Witch onto Hades, I believe. He's using Hades. Isn't that nice? And Hades
Yeah.
takes it, and then he fires back with some strength onto Grunge. So he's piling up, trying to pile up the damage on Grunge. Respect for that.
Now, the tough part for Ty here, I think this is a really bad matchup for Ty. Now, Ty is playing Asclepion, which is the new home base. So if he heals hits from the permanent record, he's going to also get to draw a card and then follow with another attack on the same turn. So it gives them the ability to heal a character, keep the card advantage, and fire back with speed. But the problem is with these, Hades or Beyonder decks, they really don't care as much about character KO. You've got to get through an extremely defensive deck and take out 2 characters before Sean's going to really feel any pain for losing a character. So, whereas Ty's whole shtick is to keep all his team alive. So while Ty's deck is going to do really well at first at absorbing the hits, it's a matter of time before Sean gets his KO event or Sean can force him to just trade characters.
Now I wonder if Tyler's using Mephisto's in service of the Dark Lord special. There's a way or two that he can get some redundancy on playing. I wouldn't be surprised if that KO event comes up if Ty chooses to KO Scarlet Witch, if he's able to get that effect in play.
Yeah, so Sean's just stacking up the venture, which makes sense. Sean was able to use his avoid off Hydra. So that Hydra card, I think it's called Baron Strucker's Experiments. It allows you to avoid a card, and then you get an 8 stat in what was avoided. He avoided an 8 intelligence, so Shadow King is now a third 8 rank character. Sean looks to be out of cards. He doesn't like getting hit with that. That 3, if it's successful, a really low hit, it allowed Ty to draw 2 more cards. So Sean had passed, but Ty's done exactly what he wanted to do here is he has run Sean out of cards.
Yeah.
And I think Sean actually was going to throw the 8, and then I think Sean said, "You know what? You've got 1 card left. I'm just going to pass cuz you're not going to beat me." So I think Sean passed, and then Ty played the thing that let him draw 2 cards.
Yeah, that might have been a slight mistake, but I totally understand. Place cards are at a premium. You don't want to throw something you don't have to throw, particularly if it's defending your Hades, who's like the fail safe for that deck. But I think, what is that one? Mystic Bolt. I think that Mystic
Yeah.
Bolt really good timing on that. Now, I will say I don't love spreading the damage. I think we've talked about this or had debates in one or two of the other matches. I would have liked Ty to throw that 7 onto Shadow King and just try to pile that up.
And I
Because
will
if you could,
say,
sorry, go.
Shadow King does have the ability to do a full reset of the venture. And I know Sean is a big fan of that mechanic. So, Sean will play into it knowing that later in the game, he can just undo all the progress his opponent makes early game. So I agree with you completely, Dave. I would be piling everything up. That is one of the cards that if you kill one character, it's a huge effect you don't have to deal with.
And also, I think when you're playing a Hades or a Beyonder deck, you are trying to figure out how to kill that grid. And if he could kill Shadow King and then kill Mr. Fantastic, then you have Hades and X Babies as a max 5 grid combo. So now it looks like Ty used his battle site to set up his ongoing shift from Mephisto to Grunge.
Yep. So that is Onslaught's cannon fodder. So that must be his 1 per deck off his Onslaught Citadel battle site. So any attacks against Mephisto will now automatically get shifted to Grunge.
Now, what is the power card on Grunge that's not the 6? Is that a 5 or a 7? I think it's alternate art.
Oh, it's a 7. It's I forget the character's name. She was in the Extreme X-Men. I think it's Sage. She's got like kung fu slash. She's like a living computer, so she can like hack stuff with her brain.
Okay.
She's a X-Men adjacent character who comes in and out from time to time. But that is a 7 intelligence and a 6 intelligence. Um, so Shawn, so that's interesting. That must have been no cards with a fighting icon because,
To attack, so he couldn't use the 4 strength from Beast to get the venture.
and
Yeah.
that's what it is. Now we can see it because if he could have thrown the 4, he could have got the venture. But Shawn had the stones to just stay in that and ends up coming out ahead and winning the venture. I'm also wondering, I think there wasn't a big bet there. I think they both only went 1. So Ty probably could have thrown a numerical attack off the onslaught activator, but he opted to set up the first piece of his deck to shift the hits to grunge instead.
All right, so we're
So
back into hand 2, and they're starting to place out a little bit. 2 teamworks for Shawn. It'll be interesting to see if he has the power cards to fuel those.
now one thing that's interesting to me is Ty is running a lot of fighting icons for running that event. Running a
Yeah.
fighting ally in addition to the fighting teamwork while he's got and his aspect doesn't need to be fighting. Um,
Yeah, we should talk to him about that one. I'm just joking. I understand sometimes he likely this is an intellect energy deck where his third type might be strength and he's trying to get a little bit of fighting and squeeze it in. I kind of understand the ally, maybe even the teamwork. You shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't run the aspect as fighting there because you will always place that card and you typically tend to drag it forward. That should be a different color in my mind. The
I,
fighting and the ally and the teamwork, I agree with you. Questionable. I definitely think that aspect needs to be a different color.
I agree. I think you just look you got to look at variance at like you're gonna have the games where it goes the wrong way. Why give yourself more times that it's gonna go the wrong way where it could just line up in your finals match and you lose the whole thing because of it?
Right.
But they're
Well, looks
staying
like
good.
no, it looks like I think Ty bet 2 and Shawn relented. So normal kind of overpower setup. They're both setting up their decks. I think no one's had a particularly good or bad draw just yet, and more action to come.
So Sean's got his KO event, and it also looks like he's got no cards with the word teammate. And I'm surprised he's thinking about this, but maybe he doesn't want to lose the placed cards. But
Yeah,
he goes with the KO. He's the first one to select. He kills the X babies.
of course.
Ty doesn't love to see this. Um, I think Ty unfortunately has to kill Scarlet Witch, which is what he does.
Yeah. Yeah, you should leave her on the board there, yeah, for that +5. It stinks to lose that 6 strength sorceress slam or whatever the name of it is, but at least the -5 offsets that a bit. And if he's lucky, maybe he can get. Now, here's a question for you, Joe. The Mephisto Service of the Dark Lord, is that one of the cards where you need the character to be alive to activate it, or can you
No,
target
that
a?
you need it to be alive to target him. So it reads target teammate. Mephisto may play target teammate special cards for the remainder of the game. It says including after they're KO'd, which is an unfortunate wording. And what it means is some of the rulings on the earlier ones, like living costume, for example, if Spawn dies, there was an old, terrible Legion ruling that then the character could no longer play those specials,
Which what?
which like then why would you ever play the card? I think even that ruling's gone away. But yeah, the idea is Mephisto targets someone and then can play the cards. Being that he's the devil, we probably could have worded that even where it's like name a KO'd character on your team, and it could have been more thematic if he plays it specifically after the character's KO'd.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Now
we move on.
Mephisto is a max 8 intellect with a 7 energy backup stat and has that mystic bolt. He probably doesn't need to be better, but he's also very expensive. So I think we could have gone either way on that. And certainly, that was a community set, very beloved. So there's a lot of input on those things.
It is great though. I do like that he's fringe, but I do like that he sees play occasionally. It's always nice to see that.
Yeah.
Um, Looks like Ty's going 3 here. It looked like he went 2 from the middle, 1 from the top, but I don't see Shawn drawing a card.
He's thinking about it. Let's see. Tyler does have initiative. He has the 9 or less on Silver Sable, which hypothetically is dead, but you don't really want to have to pile up actions on the wrong hero here, so we'll see how Shawn plays it.
And it isn't always necessarily dead. We don't know how many image inducers are
That's
being.
true. Now his
I'm
battle site, is he running Age of Apocalypse?
He's running Onslaught Citadel, which is where he got the cannon fodder
Okay,
from.
right, apologies. So he does have likely 1 or 2 ways to lock out Silver Sable and push the opponent into that avoid, so, uh, I
Yeah.
like Ty's position here. I'm not sure if it need to be a bet 3, but he also might know that he's working against the clock with that universal reset coming.
And Ty does have Ty's got a lot of times people aren't tracking the I forget the name of the card, but it's Grunge's other one per deck copies any card that's a hit on his record. That includes current battle. So a lot of times Shawn a player will throw something that he can shift into Grunge, not expecting that he can immediately get hit back with it.
Right. I love that card, and I do love the way that Tyler plays it. He's very good at it. So we have a 7 intellect attack from the battle site, an analyze, I believe, from
Mhm.
Doc Samson, and it hits.
Sean loves to open with that 7. The Doc
ARs are so good.
Yeah, and the Doc Samson activators in that battle site generally don't have any defense, so he likes to just get it out there and poke with it right away, just make the opponent have to deal with it. So Sean's got the teammate avoid from which is a full avoid when Hades is on the board, so he's able to avoid that attack that's coming through.
Now, is that what a multi-power attack?
That's a 5 multi-power, so
Okay.
he's trying to get a little bit of spectrum pressure on Hades, but Sean's gonna have none of it and just do a teammate 9 or less avoid.
Yeah.
And then Sean is going to choose to concede and strand a lot of big cards in his hand. Um, Ty got a little tricky there. He held the 3 draw 2 in his hand and didn't have a special place to Mephisto. I think that's one of those times where he got a little too cute from himself. I think he just should have placed it.
Yeah, I think I like this vein of analysis or conversation or debate. I think when you have those kind of mechanics, it makes sense to hide your first copy, but usually you're running 3. Once you burn through a copy, you've got to place number 2 and number 3 because you're not sure when it's going to come up, and those are almost always near victory conditions, right? Because in the old rules, you can still target the battle site. You can obviously try to throw it to places where they're only blocked for where it might be a high value power card. I agree that I would have certainly dragged that one forward.
Yeah, I think so. And well, there's the venture reset we talked about. Now, one
Yeah,
unfortunate part is Ty's only got one negate to his name. It's just whatever activator he has it on off the site. He has the option of Holocaust or Beast. We haven't seen Ty's deck this tournament, so we don't know where it is. And Ty will switch it up from event to event. He's very cognizant of people knowing which one he has it on. So he will switch it up some events. You don't know if it's going to be Holocaust or Beast. Sean
that's
places the
very interesting.
Sean places the Black Widow. That gives him a full avoid. Sean also placed his draw 3 off Mr. Fantastic. So Ty is doing much better on his missions, but Sean is definitely building up the ability to reset those missions sooner or later and be able to draw 3 cards. So um, yeah, Sean's deck is just really such a to equate this to like Magic the Gathering. Sean's deck is such a blue control deck. It's just it doesn't care if he loses a character. He's not like trying to get big one per decks. He's just trying to control the missions and not let you win while he just slowly attritions you out. And it's an incredibly good deck. It's very hard to play against.
Yeah, definitely. And this goes back to I would have really liked to have seen Tyler just pile the damage on Shadow King, rather than splitting it to X babies. And then that KO event came, so then that damage is gone. at least give Shawn something to think about during that KO decision. I think he still would have KO'd X Babies, but I'm trying to work on myself personally. This is for the audience. I'm coaching myself up. I'm giving myself therapy.
Oh, wow. Sorry. So Sean played the Hydra card where he can get an attack off of Ty's battle site. He chooses to use his negate as an attack. Current rules, that's legal. He negates the cannon fodder, shutting down Ty's main mechanic. And now he knows Tyler does not have a negate to his name. He knows the draw 3 goes through automatically. He knows the reset the venture goes through automatically. That is absolutely devastating of a play. Ty was not able to negate it even himself, but either way, he just knew. Actually, I think Ty's got the Dark Beast in hand, and just it doesn't even make sense to use it. Just save it for the only universe. But that what a play by Shawn. I think Ty's telling him like that. That was
That
such a smart play.
great play, and that might, that's really gonna hurt Ty's chances moving forward in this game. And this isn't like currently a game point scenario, but this really sets up Shawn to be in a commanding position to be able to throw that draw 3, and know it's going to go through. And he almost doesn't even need to reset the missions now unless he wants to.
But Sean's only been betting one every battle, and I think Ty is either 4-3 or he's got at least Ty has nothing in the defeated. So yeah, I think this is a rough spot for him to be in. He does still have the ability to throw that grunge card as a 7 intelligence power card. Maybe he can snake something through, but Sean's just gonna
And
go for it now. What do you do? Oh, he just tried to do it. And then Sean said he tried to do it. He went, I'm gonna negate, and then Sean had to remind him, oh no, there's no negate there.
what a great play. Now again, I Ty threw that 7 fighting AR from I believe Onslaught onto Mr. Fantastic. I would have rather seen that at Shadow King. I do know Shadow King has the avoid a special and then make you discard, and people fear that sometimes. But I think sometimes you have to risk those occasionally, right? If it's not for the game point, you have to generate some kind of KO pressure. And I just feel like that 3 mental bolt, it just kind of gotten stranded out there. Same thing with the 2 strength that hit Hades. These both, represent good hits you got on your opponent, but they're not strategically working for you, right?
Yeah. I will say this. I actually think I'm on Ty's side on this one. I think Ty's not getting once that one per deck has gone off Shadow King, he's not getting anything for going there. It's only a 3 on his record. I think he's got to try to just take out the 8. But then again, I forgot.
It's
It
backed
doesn't.
up.
It's backed up. It doesn't even matter anymore. So
Yeah, he's in a challenging position. So this is all us watching, Monday morning quarterbacking. But I just don't love to see colors spread around where they don't end up doing anything. It's just a
that's
slight. I do that sometimes, and sometimes it's great. Sometimes I really look back at my games and I just think, why did I spread that? Like, why didn't I pile it on? I know why the Mystic Bolt went to Shadow King. It's because that hand 1 was able to get the draw 2 off. Makes perfect sense. The later 2 strength, I just wish that was somewhere else.
now that I'm thinking about it. I never really thought about this, but if he's able to bump the Shadow King up to an 8 intelligence, the KO event is kind of amazing there because it locks in Hades as an 8 for the rest of the game. You can't even attack his grid anymore.
Right, you need to be able to negate off the Baron Strucker's Experiments card to kind of make it fall apart. I think the real challenge here for, again, the matchup you were talking about, that KO event and KOing your negator, you just almost can't. I almost think if you go back to that, maybe you have to kill Mephisto. I'm not sure.
It's
Because
just
not
tough.
having the negate, it's the way Sean's deck is set up, you really do need that negator.
And it's one of the tough things about this old environment. We've talked about this a lot, but there's nothing that events just happen, and the killing a character event is incredibly strong. I mean, even from the early days when there wasn't a lot of tricks, people would just have a character with no cards in for them, and so when
Right.
they died, they didn't care. Um, but it's just it's such a powerful effect. And other than one character, Bishop, who has to get cards in ahead of time, and it's near impossible to do. There's not a lot of ways to deal with him. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the new environment. Are characters like the Time Traveler who can directly negate some of these events.
I think that's definitely going to change the meta greatly. Where if we see too many Hades or Beyonder decks, you're going to see Time Traveler as a natural counter, and I'm looking forward to see that. Um, Certainly, I think the Lazarus Rising games, the 30 years of Overpower event that was just released, which for anyone listening who doesn't know about that, it's a more or less a clone or a copy of the Infestation Incident event set with one notable addition, which is the both players cannot attack with cards with the intelligence icon, which I think is going to help balance out the environment. That's going to also be a hard counter to these kind of intellect heavy decks. Sean's counting up his actions. I think he's in a pretty commanding position.
Yeah, to get him getting the one advantage Ty does have here is if he can get down to just grunge. There are a lot of. He's still got some tricky stuff he can do where he could let every single hit grunge except multis, and then do a big tuck all the hits to permanent record through
True.
Holocaust. There's definitely still some trickiness, but Sean has played this game so long, and he knows he's been playing a variant of this deck for the last 3 years, so he knows this deck just backwards and forwards. He's won multiple tournaments with different variations, and he should have won the Champ of Champs last year. He had a mix-up where he's playing Phil Keffer in the finals and forgot that one of his events was still in play, and he actually had the win. So he ended up, play mistake, so he did not end up winning that game. But uh, this deck is clearly a S-level top-tier deck.
Yes. And I
Now,
believe that is that the sixth discard too he has placed on Shadow King.
it is.
Yeah, so he's very well set up with his kind of offensive juice to be able to again put some pressure onto Tyler without even having to use the draw three, and have that draw three once he gets close to the game point. So I think what did Sean bet this round? Maybe 3 or 4.
I missed what the bet was. I think it was at least 3. I know he
I
gave Ty a card, but I also
yeah,
think Sean's just looking to the ventures reset. So Ty's not really in a place where he's not even going to be able to make a very big bet because he just can't afford to give Sean the cards. Sean doesn't play any one protects for the X babies. So Sean now, even though a character died from the KO event, there's literally nothing that he draws other than a duplicate that he's worried about. He can play every card in his deck still, and Ty is down 2 characters.
yeah.
All right, so he's going to use his other copy of it. Sean negated the first one. He's going to set up the shift so everything goes to uh, grunge, and he's going to block the multi-power hit. I'm kind of surprised he didn't do that with the teamwork initially and just let the teamwork hit on grunge. Seems like that's the place where he wants the hits, but he also is probably worried about dead is dead.
He also might be trying to intentionally set up what you previously spoke about, where he might want Mephisto close enough to death so he can, on a game point scenario, have him be KO'd and then try to pull off a trick on Grunge.
That is true. Getting him so one icon kills him does maybe give him a chance where if he's got some kind of ability to lock out, even the beast only universe can sometimes be a win condition. So he's taking a Hail Mary with this 8. He's hoping the last card in his hand can't deal with it, but Sean is gonna looks like Sean's gonna have to play his 1 per deck off the site and copy a card out of Ty's dead pile. And Ty assuming obviously has something that defends it. Oh my God. And Shawn has the Doc Samson. Ty cannot catch a break this game. What a brutal game. That is we call it a KL. That's the code. Ty has to discard all cards in play that affect remainder of battle or remainder of game. Ty has got his shift mechanic out onto Grunge twice. Both times Shauna has had the perfect answer for it. And Yeah, I think that's the death nail here for Ty. I don't really he's kind of used all of his juice and Shawn is just not letting up. Shawn's got a huge placing advantage. He's no attrition for what playable cards he has. He's got a draw three, multiple teamworks, a six discard two. Ty's clinging on to life here, and I mean, if Ty comes back and wins this somehow, this will be the greatest comeback in Overpower history.
KLs off the battle site are just so underrated. It's definitely a play that's been used against me to great effect, and it's impressive. And I think I've also used it myself. I used the KL off of Muir Island for Captain Britain to, I think, win a match against Josh Alexander, where he was doing one of his classic locksmith lockout decks, and he's like, "There's only one card that could beat me." So I love that play from Shawn, and I think people should be playing KLs more in the game in general, but definitely off of battle sites.
Well, and I think even in the mixed environment, once we start adding these other cards in when the set drops, I think you're going to see a lot more of them as well. We one thing we did is we used a lot more remainder of battle, remainder of game, non-numerical cards this set to just create a lot more really fun and powerful effects. And I think you're going to start to see KLs be a you're going to start to see KLs be a lot more common.
It's actually interesting how
So Ty, hold on. Ty throws that whatever that's called, power mimic, I think it's called. He must have thrown it as an intellect power card and snuck it by, and he did get the kill off Mr. Fantastic.
now
Ugh.
Shawn just hit him with the six discard two from Shadow King, knocking out Mephisto. And now, what we spoke about, this might set Ty up for a one Hail Mary gigantic bet. It looks like he might be at maybe 2-4-1. So he might be in a position where he could bet six. But I mean, he's going to have to generate some venture to make that work.
Yeah. So
And
I think
with
he's
this
he's
level of attrition, it's just tough. He just discarded three, right?
he does have the lockout, but the other problem is the lockout that he has is only universe, and Sean is not. He's been very disciplined, and I'm sure specifically for this situation, he's held on to those two teamwork cards. Probably just so if he has only universe, Ty isn't going to be able to lock himself out.
Now, Shawn places the Nick Fury activator. I don't think we've seen him use the avoid energy and draw yet. Have
No, he is not. But he did get another one of those six discard twos.
I only run one of those in my Heroes for Hire old man deck, and I've really thought seeing Shawn play sometimes I should be running two or three. Um, I'm wary of adding the additional duplication rate to it, but it's so strong. I need to reconsider.
Yeah, I mean, I played three of them when I ran Red Skull. It's just, did that in his 2-1 per decks, and yeah, it was amazing. There's so many times players get to the end, and a lot of players do have a habit of saying, "Well, I can take damage, and I wanna do a little punching back and forth," and you'll just have situations where you're like, okay, like Sean, you have a teamwork and a six discard two place to this character, and I know you can't block a six, so get rid of them both.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ty's just on his heels. Sean's doing the right thing. He's just making small incremental bets. Ty's gone from none in the bottom to none in the top, and Mr. Fantastic's probably only got one card that'll generate a dupe. I think maybe his pin card, his target character can't attack. That's probably the only card that he's going to have to discard. And frankly, Ty's probably really glad he got rid of Mr. Fantastic before that's come up.
Yeah, I agree. I think the challenge for Ty here now with what his best victory condition is will be a lockout or a tuck, but he can't bet for the win currently. He's at zero, I think 061. So even if his current hand sets up well for that, he's not going to be able to take it down. And you need to be able to bet for the win in these situations when you have that final trick left. And looking at his hand right now, it looks like he has a number of grunge specials and maybe a power card, so he can't really even place, which is unfortunate.
And Sean, unfortunately, too, has drawn the avoid a special draw card, which is playable by both of his remaining characters. So Grunge is finally getting some offensive heat, and he's going to throw it right into an avoid draw. Shawn has set him up now where any hit that isn't energy or intelligence is for the kill because of the absolute KO rule. That would have been enough. That one would have made him both cumulative and spectrum. Ty's going to try to throw this out. He's doing no special cards targeting Hades, and he's going to use avoid a special and draw.
And draw, right?
And it's a keeper. This is Shawn, I believe, is going for the win here. So Ty's got this only universe, and he just can't use it. Shawn has a third teamwork card from hand. That is just absolutely brutal. Ty can let any number of intellect and energy hits hit, so he does have that advantage. But yeah, this is a tough spot to be in. Also, Grunge is only a max 6 character, so he can't even throw 7 or 8 power cards at this point.
Now, what is that card? That's from Grunge. So what is that? Strength
Give me
attack?
1 second. I've got the overpower.ca open. Let me just open up Grunge. That 3 is, I think, is discard a universe. Oh no, it's the same card Fairchild has, so that's interesting. It's a 3, and then Grunge can use a teammate special. So I bet Ty, yes. So Ty saved the Mephisto 9 and is able to keep it and attack with it because he threw the 3. Interesting.
Now, Shawn doesn't negate that, so he must be very cognizant or wary of a lockout or a tuck trick. So good discipline there. Um, I guess we'll see. He's
I think
following.
he tried to use the so that hits. Ty dumps 2 cards. I don't know what they were. And it looks like Shawn possibly, for some reason, couldn't throw the follow up. I think I think it was, yeah. So that's interesting. So Shawn got the game. The reason he couldn't throw that teamwork, it had strength in fighting follow ups, and the Shadow King is only a 1 and a 1. So the 3 multi in his hand couldn't actually follow that teamwork up. But it didn't matter. Shawn got enough damage on the board to win the venture. And yeah, unfortunately for Tyler, that deck's just a bad matchup for him. And Tyler's deck Shawn had every answer every step of the way. So, that was a close match. We'll see. I think unfortunately Ty also got the pair up. He'd had a couple wins. I think Shawn at this point is undefeated or has only lost 1.
No, so at this point he was 4-0, and I believe I was also 4-0, and that's probably our next matchup. Um, so Shawn's on a roll as usual. You know the hangman.
He's
He's
hanging it. Shawn has just hung another one. So the hangman does his thing and comes out with a victory.
That was a great matchup. I always feel like I learned something from watching the top players in the game compete. Again, I'm going to consider that 6 discard too. I need to be running multiple copies. Just so much good offensive pressure that Shawn was able to have that game, and obviously that KO event coming early. Just a tough draw for Ty, but he gutted it out. I think made it real competitive. But it's just tough to win when you have 1 hero left and the opponent has 2.
100% agree. All right, everybody, that is round 4. There is only 1 round left in the Swiss, and then we cut to a top 8. So we are going to see you over at the next video for the next game. Thanks very much for being with us.